People in Colorado have gotten a historic level of financial help to make rent over the last few years. So what happens when that money dries up this fall? You've got questions about those checks. You know, the ones that Democrats tried to rebrand, but they're really just TABOR. We've got the answers. As you head out to the grocery store this weekend, a local reporter urges you to think about the place where your favorite produce is coming from. And it's Friday, so on a hot, sunny day, we head to Clear Creek for a Friday tradition.
Yeah, good news. I'm comfortable, but bad news, my butt itches.
Mine too, buddy. Let's get through this together. Next. Police in Aurora say a 15-month-old baby who was in a car that was stolen this afternoon is safe. Police say someone stole that car with the baby inside around 4:45 near Montview in North Dayton. That's near New Legacy Charter School. Police say they found the baby and the stolen brown RAV4 less than a mile away on East Colfax. Police are still searching for the suspect. They say he's 20 to 25 years old, Hispanic, about 5'10", wearing all black, a black hat, black shirt, black pants, and shoes. If you saw anything in that area, please call the police department. States received historic amounts of federal money to help with the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of that funding will run out this fall, like the money for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Coloradans can still apply now, but come September 30th, that money will be gone. Here's Katie Eastman.
Emergency rental assistance has been a towering success. It's a fantastic program.
Zach Newman sings the praises of a program that's about to go away. He says his organization, which helps 1,000 clients a month, still need it. Zach is the executive director of the COVID-19 Eviction Defense Project.
Katie, I think what's scary is the fact that in a number of months, these federally funded resources are going to be all used up. And so we're going to be in a world where the federal dollars that have sustained renters for 2 years in Colorado are suddenly no longer available.
And the need isn't going away.
The need isn't going away because wages have not kept up with the price of housing in Colorado.
Zach says the problem has changed from people getting laid off due to COVID-19 to people working full-time jobs and still not being able to afford rent.
It's a story of needing to build a lot more programs and avenues for people to be able to afford the cost of living in Colorado.
The state has not seen new applications for rental assistance go down since December of 2020 when the funding became available. The Division of Housing says July's applications stayed steady, with just more than 3,700 submitted.
When that federal funding ends, I think there's a real question regarding what happens to folks in Colorado who can't quite make that rental payment, who are $200 short, $300 short. Do we have a mechanism to keep them in their homes, or are we going to go back to the old bad way of doing things?
Zach says that old bad way was prior to the pandemic when there weren't a lot of programs to help people pay rent. Congress has not approved any additional rounds of funding for emergency rental assistance. The state's Department of Local Affairs that ran that program says after September 30th, they will continue with eviction diversion efforts. But, Steve, that people just won't get those direct cash payments.
There's got to be a silver lining to all of this, though, because these resources have been there, so now at least something's in place, right?
Yeah, and that's what Zach talked about. So many organizations created the infrastructure and the mechanisms to help more people, so those exist now. It's just a matter if they will still have the money to pay for them.
All right, Katie Eastman reporting. Thank you. Colorado's Democratic Attorney General is asking the top court in the country to uphold the state's civil rights law. It's currently being challenged by website designer Lori Smith. She runs 303 Creative. She wants to expand wedding website services, but does not want to offer that service for gay couples. Now the Supreme Court will weigh in. Attorney General Phil Weiser filed a brief with the Supreme Court saying the law requires businesses to serve all customers. He argues that businesses cannot refuse service because of someone's sexual orientation, race, or religion. Weiser said that the state's anti-discrimination law regulates business sales, not speech. District Court and the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that the state's law is constitutional. If all this sounds familiar, it might be because of baker Jack Phillips. He refused to bake a cake for a gay couple. In 2018, the court ruled that Colorado's Civil Rights Commission acted with anti-religious bias against Phillips. It did not decide on whether a business can refuse service to LGBTQ people based on religious objections. The Supreme Court says that it will only look at the free speech issue in the website case. Hey, may I make a recommendation? Point you towards something that didn't come from us but is worth your time. Charles Ashby with the Daily Sentinel in Grand Junction has done a great job covering election denier Tina Peters. His latest article details how Peters asked to be selected in her re-election attempt for Mesa County Clerk. We should note that Peters has repeatedly claimed Democratic candidates select themselves into office instead of being elected. Mesa County's GOP chairman, Kevin McCarney, says that Peters asked him to make sure no one else got into that race. This happened months before anyone announced that they were running. McCarney says Peters was asking him to fix the race because she knew she was going to lose. McCarney told her no. He has since called on Peters to resign as Mesa County Clerk, and she's barred from serving as county clerk, but she's still making $93,000 a year despite not doing the actual work. Our next questions tonight are all about TABOR and the refund checks showing up in your mailbox. Claudia says she received 2 refund checks in her name and asked, what should I do? If anyone else is like Claudia, the state says you should check in with the call center. You can call them at 303-951-4996, number right there on your screen. She thought that one of the checks might be for a parent who died. We've heard from a few of you asking what to do if you get a check for someone who died. The Department of Revenue says if you are an executor of the estate, you may be able to cash the check, but each circumstance is different. You may have to fill out a form called Claim for Refund on behalf of deceased taxpayer to get that money. All right, let's do one more. Scott in Fort Collins says he doesn't want the money. He asked, can I return my TABOR refund? Scott says he'd rather see the money help Colorado. The state says there's no way for a taxpayer to return the refund, but you could always donate it to a friend, family member, or a local nonprofit. You guys have so many questions about this. A couple of FAQs. If you have not received your check yet, don't worry. If you don't get it by August 30th, then you should call the call center. And no, the check is not taxable because it is your tax money being refunded to you. If you are like me, you have a trip to the grocery store on your to-do list this weekend. And while you're there, you're going to snag some of that awesome Colorado produce we're so used to seeing this time of the year. The corn, the peaches, and the cantaloupe. Some food for thought on that last one, courtesy of an editor for the Aurora Sentinel who grew up in southern Colorado. Kara Mason tweeted, when you buy your melons from Rocky Ford this year, also remember that Otero County's poverty rate is 14% higher than the state average. And the number of households receiving food aid is 10% higher. To dig a little deeper into this, I reached out to Project Moxie. It's a consulting firm that works on planning affordable housing projects in Colorado. They did an intensive study on homelessness in southeast Colorado, especially in Rocky Ford. And they found that homelessness in that region looks different than the very visible homelessness we see here in the Denver area.
We have people living in houses that have roofs falling in. We have our unhoused sleeping in abandoned buildings. They were sleeping in an abandoned school and using old textbooks to stay warm at night. It was really a shocking difference between how we see our unhoused here in the metro area versus how we see our unhoused in rural.
Project Moxie is working with another company to build a supportive housing project in Rocky Ford. Executive Director Jen Lopez says that that's addressing some of the needs, but what Southeast Colorado really needs is more funding for service providers. They're the ones who go out into the community and find these folks who are in dire situations, but really in hiding, to get them the resources they need.
It's a really resilient community, and they are stepping up to create the solutions. They're going to need more support and funding.
Project Moxie's report recommends better coordination of service providers in the areas around Rocky Ford to better identify the needs there. They also suggest a more thorough count of the unhoused community in that region. The thousands of people who showed up for the counterculture pop-up in Routt County, they have left. The U.S. Forest Service says the last of the rainbow gathering campers left this week. All summer, people have been worried about the new age hippies playing music, leaving trash, and damaging the landscape there. The Forest Service tells our partners at the Steamboat Pilot that overall, they're pretty happy with how things went. They say rehabilitation work is underway now. Recent rain has helped with that recovery. And the Forest Service says volunteers have been conducting hand aeration to help the soil where all the cars were parked. Volunteers also cleaned up all the trash and any camping gear that was left behind. Every week around here, you all pitch in to help make a difference in this community. This week, you're helping families dealing with an unfathomable loss. Here's Kyle with an update.
When a child dies in northern Colorado, in a crash, at the hospital, at home, first responders will often reach out to a nonprofit called Three Hopeful Hearts. And those folks will come quickly, like that day, so they can comfort the parents and the families, to share the compassion and care that can only come from their own heartbreak experience of losing their child. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign has raised $14,000 and counting to help Three Hopeful Hearts expand their work. This week, they're holding one of their teen retreats for kids who have lost a sibling, so they can meet other people their age who have gone through the same. They want to begin offering whole family retreats, a place where families would be able to be led through the grieving process by other bereaved parents, with the goal of keeping marriages and families strong after the unthinkable loss of a child. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to join me in donating to Three Hopeful Hearts, so that they're ready to respond for the next call, for the next family, and then to provide each of those families with years of support.
The contractor still isn't sure what went wrong when flooding stranded drivers on I-70. They're trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. Colorado lags when it comes to childhood vaccinations, yet we're seeing a different trend when it comes to COVID. On a steamy summer day, we hit the water to share your good news.
My good news is that it's my brother Evan's 27th birthday, and we're on this beautiful river having a great day.
That's next.
Well, today another hot one out there as those temperatures got all the way into the mid-90s. Some areas approaching triple digits further north, northeast, and further east. Off across the western slope, we made it to the mid-90s as well. 70s and 80s were the highs so far in the high country. Temperatures cooling down just a little bit as we get closer to sunset. We're at 93 degrees right now in Denver, upper 80s down in the Springs. Still hot nonetheless. So because of that hot weather, we do have another air quality alert that'll be in effect until 4 o'clock tomorrow over the usual areas and then even further south as well, making it down to Colorado Springs. And the hot weather mixed with the high levels of ozone. So if you are in a sensitive respiratory group, you're someone who might want to limit your time outside throughout the rest of today and tomorrow afternoon, especially with the hotter weather pushing in. Now, as you take a look at our HD Doppler radar, that monsoonal moisture continuing to push into the state, mostly sticking to the high country and western slope. The eastern half of Colorado looking to stay pretty dry throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening. Overnight, those storms that are out there now continue to lift on out. We'll see those lows in the mid to upper 60s. The same goes for the western slope, 40s and 50s out west. Tomorrow, another hot day in store, but we do get some relief as we move into next week. By Monday, we see those temperatures back in the 80s with several storm chances there.
80 sounds nice. Thank you, Lauren. It's been 6 days since the flooding on Sunday, where more than 24 people needed rescue. Drivers on I-70 got stranded in flooding between York and Steele. Kiewit, the contractor working on the I-70 construction there, says the investigation into what went wrong is still ongoing. On Monday, Kiewit said that the pumps did not turn on automatically because of an error in the drainage pump system. At this time, they don't know why it didn't work. They say the pump and the backup system are working now. They've been tested. Kiewit says that they're also looking to improve the alarm system so that staff is warned when that pump stops working. They'll also have staff on site monitoring the pumps when there are storms in the area. The youngest kids in Colorado are getting the COVID vaccine at more than double the rate of the national average, which is surprising because Colorado tends to lag behind national averages when it comes to other childhood vaccinations. So far, 9.8% of kids 6 months to 4 years have received a first dose of the COVID vaccine. That's more than 28,000 of the youngest children in our state. The national average is just 4.7%. Data from the state shows that there was an initial rush when vaccines became available. Those weekly numbers have since been falling.
with every age step down that we've seen throughout our pandemic response, it was 12 through 17-year-olds first. We saw a bit of a decrease in uptake among 5 to 11, and so we anticipated a little bit of the same kind of pattern with kids under 5. We're hitting those families again who took a wait-and-see approach, making sure they have all the information, resources they need to be able to make that decision and then book an appointment.
Compare what we're seeing with COVID to other vaccination trends. According to federal data, about 92% of kids 19 to 35 months old in the U.S. are up to date on their vaccines. Compare that to 87% of kids in Colorado. We do want to share more promising COVID updates. 7.7% of tests have come back positive over the last week. Those are the tests that we know of, but don't count all the at-home tests that are not reported. Still, it's good news. Early last month, we were at 13%. Our positivity is the lowest it has been in 3 months. COVID modeling shows more signs of progress, lower hospitalizations and lower case counts. State says it's also seeing lower levels of COVID in our wastewater, which shows that things are improving.
One of my buddy's mom just beat cancer, so we're pretty excited about that.
Oh, there we go.
That is a reason to celebrate. It's Friday, so we'll share more of your happy goodness next. Man, it was a hot one, like 7 inches from the midday sun. Just another excuse to cool off and find the answer to our favorite question. What's your good news in Golden at Clear Creek?
Oh, I always sit here watching tube and kayak.
This is our first run. We have fallen out of our tubes twice so far. I've lost my hat. My good news is that it's my brother Evan's 27th birthday, and we're on this beautiful river having a great day.
We got a couple of Mines football players here, and our good news is we start pads tomorrow. So we're going to be going full speed. It's going to be fun.
Oh, I sit here every day for a couple hours.
I was digging a hole. Jude, come on, let's come and play with me. Hey, I'll bury you in sand. Then, and yeah, bury. And then, bye-bye, I'm gonna go play in the water. And now I'm stuck here. Good news, I'm comfortable, but bad news, my butt itches.
My good news is Golden is the best town of my entire life, so I feel spoiled here. I'm in La La Land.
A Friday tradition, thanks to photojournalist Tom Cole. We end the week as we always do with your feedback. It's a good way to end the week. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today, a horse pulling up for a latte. Tracy Anderson spotted the horse walking through a Starbucks drive-thru in Thornton. Best part about this is the horse is looking directly into the store. I love it. Horse has a buddy who picked up the drinks. They were there on their way. Send us your Colorado things with the hashtag HeyNext or email next@9news.com. Colorado man writes in tonight, says, my daughter when Steger hosts. Kyle Clark grew a beard. It's amazing. That's the same reaction my wife has. Is that too Rodney Dangerfield? I don't know.